these lectures on a tablet computer like this is I'll be recording video of what I say as I go. And so you'll always be able to go back if you miss a class or if you want to see part of a lecture over again and watch videos and look at PDFs of what I did. So it'll look something like this. Here's just a random sample I pulled out. So you can hear my voice. It's than in person. And so that might be a place where I'm not writing anything, but you can see. So these videos are going to have my voice and what I'm writing at the same time, and so that's sort of the benefit of using the tablet computer. And so what you should do when I start, I'm not going to be doing any lecturing on the tablet today, but starting Wednesday when we start getting into course material, you should treat it like I'm writing on the whiteboard. Just write down whatever I say, basically, in your notes. And then at the end of the class, I'll be able to make a PDF and a corresponding video of all the stuff I had if you want that for your records later, Someone once asked me if I could, they said it would be helpful if I would post the notes for the lecture before the lecture, but it doesn't work like that since I'm doing it, so I can't do that. Sorry, that would be helpful, but I can't do that. Okay, so today, let's just go through where stuff is, first of all, on D2L, how to get to D2L. So anybody who's taken classes at Normandale before has probably used D2L. To find it, if you go to the main Normandale webpage and go to the drop-down menu here, go to Current Students, and then D2L. And you need a star ID and a password in order to get in. So if anybody's having trouble getting into D2L, send me a message and I can help you find it, figure out how to get in there. But D2L is going to be, everything that I post is going to be on D2L. Everything you turn in is going to be through D2L. So this is going to be important. But once you log in, it'll take you to a screen that shows you all your classes this semester. These are the classes I'm teaching this semester. And you are Physics 110. This is sections 13 and 14. The sections refer to when your lab period is. So the people in this class right now are made up of two different lab sections. Half of you had the lab this morning, and half of you have the lab. It's so hot in here, but I think we got to shut this. That'll help you fall asleep more easily. Hi. Okay, so the people who are in section 13 had lab today. The people who are in section 14 have lab on Wednesday. You only have lab 1 day a week. So, if you only do one or the other. If it ever works for you better to go to the other lab, the opposite one that you're scheduled for, they're always doing the same things every week. And so you can feel free to just show up to whatever lab works for you. And you don't have to tell me ahead of time, just show up for what works. And if that's true all the time, you can switch permanently. We have room in the lab, so that's not a problem. By the way, that also works with the Monday and Wednesday classes. If you want to look at the schedule and see when those labs are, you can show up to those too. So it doesn't matter to me when you do your labs. Okay? All right, so this is us. If you've gone to this page already, there's like a welcome thing that is wrong. Okay, so that's the first thing that's wrong. Your first class is not Monday, yesterday, it's right now. That's the last mistake I'm going to make, though, this semester. And the layout of the D2L page is most of the stuff that I'm going to give you is in this content section. Assessments are where you're going to look at your grades once you start turning stuff in, and where you're going to turn in assignments. Okay, so to turn in assignments, you'll go to assessments, assignments, and drop files into the defined folders. The grades, I'm going to do my best to keep those updated. You know, I think I'll be able to keep them pretty well updated, so you can always check and see what your grade percentage is at any time. But everything else that you need in this class is going to be over here in the content section. And you can see on the left side, there are a whole bunch of different categories. There's course information that in this class just has the syllabus in it. That's what we're going to spend most of this class on, just going through the structure of the class and the syllabus. And then if you ever want to read ahead or watch videos ahead, or if you ever just want kind of a different wording, a different take on the lecture that we've just gone over or something like that, I have PDFs of lecture notes by topic and lecture videos corresponding to them by topic. So if you want to watch a video on 1D particle kinematics, velocity and acceleration, you can watch it there. And these do have the corresponding PDFs. So like if you go to this PDF, those are the notes that I made doing that video. These are not exactly the same as the lectures I'm going to be giving in class, but it's all the same material. So it's very relevant if you want to look at it. And a lot of it'll be the same, but it, you know, I just change stuff a little every semester. Then as we start getting into problems, there are a few videos of me going through problems. It's, you know, I'll also, as we do our lectures, I'll be doing example problems with every topic. So these are kind of just like more example problems if you want to see me work through problems, but some of these are problems I'll assign. Some of them are problems from labs. So you can look through that and see what's available. If you're ever just not getting the process for how to do a problem, there's a good chance there's something here that'll be helpful for that. And then the way I like to think of this class is it's really a class about somewhere around 100 problems, okay? This class is about understanding 100 problems. And those 100 problems are in this problems for daily assignments section, okay? And they're broken down by topic. And these are all the problems that I'm going to give you after each lecture starting Wednesday. So I'll say something like, okay, today's on D2L, on the announcements in D2L, it'll say today's assignment is Newton's laws, numbers 4 through 6. So you'll go to this, you'll scroll down to numbers 4, 5, and 6, and then those will be the problems that you're supposed to do basically before the next class. Okay? And if you can get to the point where you understand how to do all of these problems well enough that somebody who is confused on it, you could explain to them how to do it, you know, why you made this step and this step, then you're going to do great in the class. You'll do well on the weekly assignments and you'll do well on the exams. Okay, this class is really just about understanding how to do these problems. These 100 or so problems also have full solutions available. Okay, so if you ever get stuck, or when you finish and you want to check your work, you can go to these solutions to get either a little hint of how to get going again, or just make sure that you did it right once you're done. I want to say, though, that I know a lot of the people in this class are more familiar with like biology and chemistry type classes, and it's kind of a different type of studying that you do for classes like that than you need to do for math and physics classes. I know that in biology, it's really helpful to just have note cards and just keep going through the note cards. But an approach like that, so I sometimes have biology or chemistry students who think like, oh, well, the solutions are here. I'm just going to try to remember how to do the solutions the same way that I try to remember parts of anatomy or something. It just doesn't work very well for math and physics, or it really works not well at all. The way that you have to learn math and physics is to, without a solution in front of you, make yourself think through those problems and do the problems, okay? And so looking at the solutions as you go through the problems, it's legal. You can do it if you want, but it would be a bad idea. You won't learn the material very well that way, and then you'll be disappointed when the tests come, you know? So try to do the problems without looking at solutions, and just use solutions for a boost if you get stuck, or to compare your answer at the end. And while I'm talking about problems, everything you turn into me this semester needs to have full steps shown, okay? And if you did it all in your head, then you need to pretend you followed steps. I need to be able to follow what you're doing, okay? Because the way I grade everything, and the way most physics and math people grade everything, is understanding how you came to that answer. And so just coming up with an answer of 3.6, even if that's the right answer, it just doesn't do us any good, you know? So, and if you give, the answer is 3.6 that you give, and the real answer is negative 4.8, there's no way to give you any points for that whole problem, you know what I mean? So be sure, think of like the steps that you're showing on these problems as being like the math version of writing like a short essay or something, you know? You're trying to explain to me your thinking on this topic, okay? And the answer by itself doesn't make any more sense when I grade it than if you just gave your concluding sentence to an essay and called that an essay, you know? Okay, I think that's everything over here. We're about to get into the syllabus. Does anyone have any questions about D2L before I start talking about the structure of the class? Yeah.
Not for D2L. When we're turning in assignments, so I've had previous profs who are like, you need to write a written explanation of each step of the problem.
Oh.
Do we have to do that?
No, you don't have to do that. I mean, if you just show me like the equations you're using, I can follow what's going on. But I just need to see all the, even if you're doing it in your head, I need to see the equations you're using in your head, you know? Any other questions right now? Okay, so now let's talk about the class itself. So here's the syllabus. And stuff is broken down into sections 13 and 14. You know, your lectures are the same, your labs are different. My name is Gaio Lakin. Please just call me Gaio. My PhD is not in physics. It's in sort of mechanical engineering, an area of mechanical engineering. But you know, physics is very important to that stuff. So I've done a lot of all of this in my life. My office is upstairs in room 2302. I'm changing offices at some point during the semester, but really we probably won't meet in my office much at all anyways. I do my office hours in the tutoring center, so that more people can sit there at the same time if people have the same questions. And other than that, it's more likely that we would meet in the lab room than in my office anyways. There's just more space, there's a whiteboard there. There are 3 ways you can get a hold of me. You can email, you can call this phone, although you just leave a message and I'd get an email that you left a message and then I'd call you back. But the best way to get a hold of me is the instant messenger on D2L. Let me show you where that is. Okay, so on any page in D2L, the mail icon here is the instant messenger. And it just is a lot easier for me to, or it's a lot harder for me to miss messages you send on this than it is on D2L. Than it is on email. On email, there are times when someone will send me a message. I'll look at it. I'll say like, okay, I need to check the grade book before I answer this. And then a bunch more emails come in and I just end up forgetting about it. I mean, that just happens from time to time. I try not to let that happen, but it just happens. On this, it's kind of impossible for that to happen. So that's the benefit of using this instead. Okay. My office hours are these times given: Tuesdays and Thursdays, half an hour after this class ends, and then Fridays from 12 to 2, and all that's in the tutoring center. And I know people have busy schedules, but if it works for your schedule to pick one or some of these office hour times to just come to regularly to work on your homework assignments, it seems to work really well for people who do that, So you could just go to the tutoring center, find a table where you can work on stuff, and then if you get stuck, I'm right there and you can ask questions, And there's a good chance that there would be other students there that you can work with on that stuff. So you don't have to do that, obviously, but I would encourage it. I think you'd like the way it works if you tried it. Okay, anybody have any questions about contacting me, office hours, any of that stuff? Okay. The materials for this class, the only thing that you need is a calculator with trigonometric functions. And really, you could get by without this if you don't want to buy a calculator and you don't have one. I know now people just tend to use phones for calculators. So if you want to use your phone for your homework, and then on tests, you could just borrow a calculator from us. I mean, the downside of that is the calculator we give you won't have the format you're used to on your phone. But that's fine with me. I mean, we have a box of calculators that you could borrow. But also calculators aren't very expensive. So, yes. Okay, like cosine and sine and stuff. We'll talk about that when we get to it, and we'll do an introduction to all that stuff. But you will have to use sine and cosine some, and a lot of on my phone calculator, at least, if I have it turned upright, there's no sine and cosine on it. If I turn it sideways, there are. And so if you're going to buy a calculator, make sure it has those on it. Yep.
Can we use a graphing calculator, like a TI?
Yeah, any calculator is fine. Oh, and if you have a TI calculator and you would like, it's sort of a time saver, you'll have to use the quadratic formula some in this class. Come talk to me in lab or after class or whatever, and I can program in the quadratic formula for you. So all you have to do is just punch in A, B, C, and it'll just spit out the answers. You never have to think again. That's really what we're going for here, minimal thinking. Any other questions yet? Calculators? Okay. There is no textbook required for this class, and I really think you should just avoid outside resources while you're taking this class. I think all it'll do is kind of confuse you because everybody has their own kind of way of talking about stuff. I am listing 2 books if you're looking for a reference book for the future. If I was going to, well, you know, I used to use a textbook for this class. I'm having trouble highlighting it, but, and it was this one, and it's a perfectly good textbook. But it's very expensive, so you probably don't want to buy it. But I know a lot of people in this class are probably eventually going to be taking standardized tests where you have to do physics, like the MCAT or the PCAT or, you know, a bunch of different professional school tests. And so what I would recommend as a reference book, if you want a reference book after this class is over, is this Shams Outline. Shams Outlines are the greatest. They cost like $20 each. They're paperback. They have concise little descriptions of topics of everything that we'll cover in this class. Not as wordy as a textbook would be, but I think perfectly good for reviewing something you've already covered. And then they have a lot of problems with full solutions to some of them and then answers only for other ones. And so it's just a great way to make sure that, you know, refresh your memory and work on a lot of problems. And so $20 isn't very much for any book, but also if you just Google Shams Outline of College Physics, there's a good chance that somewhere you'll find a posted PDF of it for free, you know. I mean, it's not legal really, but it's not a big deal. I've never been arrested for looking at anything like that. They don't seem to be very... they don't seem to work very hard to get stuff like that off the internet. You know, they seem to think that's kind of fine with them. So yeah, Shams Outlines are great for like basically every science class that you take, there's a Shams Outline for it. And I would recommend just getting in the habit of buying it for every class. You know, I have a whole basement, like dresser full of Shams Outlines for all different classes. The prerequisite for this class is college algebra. So I know, you know, colleges tend to have college algebra. It's somewhere in the vicinity of equivalent to what high schools call Algebra 2 trigonometry and what high schools call pre-calculus, you know, so somewhere around there. Really, the stuff, though, that you learn in college algebra, for the most part, you won't need for this class. All you'll really need is to be comfortable and quick and natural with regular algebra. You know, if your algebra skills are good, you won't have any math problems with this class, I don't think. But if you haven't taken something equivalent to college algebra, you might want to just come talk to me and make sure that this class is going to work for you. I think it probably will, but we should at least talk about it. One other thing about this class, as far as the math requirement goes, is there are 3 different levels of physics at Normandale. There's one that's based on calculus, there's one that's based on college algebra, and then there's one that's based on simpler math, and I don't even think it has a math prerequisite. And so you want to make sure that you're in the right one of those classes. So usually the calculus-based one, the one that's at one level higher than this one, is the class that you're expected to take if you're doing any kind of engineering, or if you're majoring in physics. And then depending on the university, it sometimes is required for people majoring in chemistry and biology too. So you should double check that. And if you're planning on this class giving you credit for like an engineering department or a physics department, you definitely need to check it out, because in most cases, this is not the one that you want, you know. Some people take this class first and then they understand the concepts better, and then they can just focus more on the math when they go into calc-based physics, and that's fine. But I just don't want you to think that you're going to be getting engineering credit for this class if you're transferring to a place where you're not going to. Okay. So yeah, if you have any questions about that, come talk to me after. The website for the class is the D2L thing. I gave you a little bit of a guide through that. And then topics to be covered. Well, we'll get to all that later. We don't have to worry about that now. Okay, so grading for the class. I pretty much tend to grade just on a 90, 80, 70, 60 scale. For the most part, if I relax that at all, like I'll let the D's go down lower than 60, but for the most part, I think you should count on 90 being the requirement to get an A in this class, for example. I think sometimes people look at that and think that sounds like sort of a hard grading scale, but I think that really is just determined by kind of how hard, like what types of tests a person gives, you know. The tests that I give tend to be very similar to the homework that I've assigned and the weekly assignments that I've given you. And so people tend to score pretty well on my exams, and I've never really found that 90% was too tough for people to, you know, as an A range, or 80% was too tough. If it turns out that I give a couple of exams that were harder than I meant and people's grades are lower, percentages are lower than I meant them to be, then I will curve it down a little bit. But I haven't had to do that in a bunch of years, and I haven't had to do it very often. And if I make a mistake the other way, this is the most strict the grading scale will be. So even if everybody gets 95% in the class, like 90% will be an A. Okay. And then the makeup of the grade is given below that. So 60% of your grade is going to be based on exams. 20% is going to be on weekly assignments. 10% is going to be on lab exams. And then 5% for both of lecture quizzes and daily assignments. And so now I'm just going to go through those 5 categories and just go into a little more detail about what those are. Anybody have any questions yet about the grading scale? Okay. So first is exams, and if I totally had my way, I probably would have a little less emphasis on exams than this is. But unfortunately, it's become way easier to cheat convincingly in the last 2 or 3 years than it was before with ChatGPT and other AI resources. And then there are websites like Course Hero and Chegg where you can put questions, send them questions and they'll send you back full solutions. And so it's just sort of getting to be where the only kind of submissions that math and physics people can really trust 100% is in-person exams. So it's unfortunate, but that's how it is. I do think, so I know that makes some people nervous because there are a lot of people who feel like their performance on tests doesn't really reflect their understanding of material sometimes due to test anxiety or whatever. But I do think you'll find that that's less of a problem on my exams than it is on some other exams, because for the most part, I'm really not asking you to think creatively on exams to come up with some new way of connecting things. I'm mostly just asking you to show me the steps that you've been practicing over and over again in the homework, And then besides that, besides the fact that these tests are going to be very similar to the homework problems you've done, I try really hard not to make them like races against the clock. So for this class is 80 minutes long. When I'm writing a test for an 80-minute class, what I tell myself is I'm trying to write a test that's 60 minutes long, you know? And so I like to see close to half of the class have already handed in their test and left when about an hour is gone in the class. And so I think you'll find you have time to lose your train of thought, false start on a problem and go back to the beginning and start it over again and that kind of stuff, and still have plenty of time to finish these problems. Okay. Each exam is worth 15% of your grade, so the final isn't worth any more than the other three. But there is one little thing that is in there to help you in case you mess up one of the earlier exams. So if your final exam is a higher percentage than any one of the 3 previous exams, then the final exam will count as itself, and it'll also replace the lowest one of your other scores. So like say if you took exam 2 and you got 45% on it, you know, just whatever goes wrong, life happens, you didn't get to study, you studied the wrong stuff, you get 45%. And then later when you take the final, you get 90%. Then you get 90 for your score on the final, on exam 4, and you also get 90 instead of 45 for your exam 2 score. Okay. So I think of that as like a mulligan in golf. You know, you mess one up, you get a chance to correct it, you know. It only works for one though, remember? So you can't skip all 3 exams and just like, oh, I'll do fine on the final. It only works for one. If you can't make it to any exams, talk to me about it beforehand and we can probably work something out for a makeup test. But if we don't talk about it beforehand and you miss the test, then that exam 4 policy is the way that you'll get scored on that exam. So like if you miss exam 3, then for the time being that's a 0. Then when you take your final, you get a 90, and that 90 counts as the final, and it also counts as exam 3. Okay, you with me on that? And then the exam schedule is here. All of our tests are going to be on Tuesdays, except the final. And I haven't looked up what our scheduled final period is yet, but it is available. So if you have a trip planned or something and you need to know what that is, we can look that up, but I just haven't looked it up yet. So if you have a calendar or something that you're keeping, you might want to enter these dates now. I will definitely make an effort to let you know when these exams are coming up. You know, a week before an exam, I'll say like, okay, exam in a week, and then I'll tell you the date, the class before, and it'll be on D2L. So I'll try to keep you informed on that, but these are going to be the dates. Any questions about the exams? Okay, the next biggest chunk of your grade are weekly assignments. And so with the daily assignments that are not worth very much of your grade, but they're the ones that I said, like basically all of your knowledge from this class is going to come from the daily assignments. I don't really grade those. I just check off basically whether you turned them in or not. You know, that's why it's such a small percentage of your grade, the daily assignments. The weekly assignments, though, I'm going to assign a little less, quite a bit less often, say once every 2 or 3 weeks. But those I'm going to grade carefully and give you points on, you know. So if you've been doing your daily assignments, most of the time, those are going to feel pretty straightforward. But this is really how I'm kind of evaluating that, yes, you're able to do this homework without having the solutions in front of you. Don't copy each other's work on this. you can feel free to talk to each other to get ideas about how to do these problems. You can talk about it as much as you want, but if you're sitting there copying down something from somebody else, that's where it switches over into not being appropriate, collaboration. And I'll say this at the end when we get to the AI stuff and the cheating related stuff, but in this class, you should never be using ChatGPT, and you should never be using Chegg or Course Hero. I'm giving you solutions to everything that I want you to have solutions for. I'm not giving you solutions to everything I don't want you to have solutions for. And so keep it that way, It is pretty much now the case that anytime I have to deal with cheating, it's related to AI and ChatGPT. Like I said, the weekly assignments, so you'll do them on paper, or if you have a tablet, you can do it on a tablet, that's fine. But most people are going to do it on paper, then take a picture of it or scan it, and then submit that file to the assignments thing in D2L. I would really appreciate it if you would figure out a way to turn in your assignments on a single page, or like as a single document. I mean, not on a single page necessarily. So like, I'm pretty sure there are apps for phones. If you type in scanner into the App Store, I think there'll be ways that pop up for you to take pictures and turn it into a single file. It's just that it's kind of tedious for me if you're turning in a 4-page assignment and you turn it in as 4 separate pictures. I just have to like keep your score in my head as I go from file to file, and then if you turn it in as 4 separate JPEG pictures or whatever, I'll grade it, that's fine. But if you can figure out a way to turn it in as a single file, I'd appreciate it. Okay, yeah, and the weekly assignments, I'm not going to give you solutions to. I'm only giving you solutions to the daily assignments. Weekly assignments. Okay, any questions about the weekly assignments? I call them weekly assignments because I always give you about a week from when I assign them to when they're due, so you have time to fit it into your schedule wherever. The next one is lab exams. Those are worth 10% of your grade total. And I'm not making you in labs write up lab reports or turn in your work or anything. When you're in lab, your job is just to understand the stuff that we're covering in lab that week. The way I evaluate that you understand the stuff we're doing in lab is that 3 times during the semester, I'm going to give you lab exams during the lab period where I'm going to ask you to recreate, answer questions similar to the ones you've answered in lab. So when you do your labs, you're going to fill out, you're going to answer all these questions. I'm going to look at it to make sure that you've done the whole lab, but then you're just going to keep that stuff, and you want to keep it safe because it'll help you study for the lab exams when it's time for those. Okay. Each one of those lab exams is worth a little over 3% of your grade, so not very much, but it adds up to a full letter grade. And the dates for the lab exams are here. So it's broken down into section 13 and section 14. And like with the regular labs, if you're in section 13, for example, and you can't make it to the lab exam, like lab exam 2 on the Tuesday, feel free to just come to the one on Thursday. You don't have to tell me ahead of time. Whatever one works for you is fine. It's going to be the same tests, difficulty and stuff. So any questions about the lab exams? Okay, and lecture quizzes. Okay, so we don't have a textbook in this class. which means that all the information that you're expected to learn in this class is what I'm going to say in lectures. And that cuts down the amount of material that you're responsible for quite a bit. Like if you think of the thickness of like a physics textbook, obviously like the notes that you're going to take in all of our classes is going to be a much smaller amount of material than a textbook. And so the trade-off is I'm giving you less stuff that you're responsible for, but I expect you to know that stuff better. You know, that's sort of my goal is like, I think it's better to have a smaller amount of material, but have you reading and rereading that material so you remember it. Okay. And so the way I encourage you to read and reread your notes as the semester goes on is that, every 2 or 3 Thursdays, we're going to end class with like a 10 or 15 minute quiz where I just ask you short answer questions about what I've said in lecture. So there's not going to be any calculations in this. It's just going to be like, what's Newton's second law or something, you know? I'm going to try to focus on what I consider to be the big ideas, but to get ready for those, what you need to do is just go back to the beginning of your notes and skim through it again. And then a week later, do the same thing again. And little by little, you're just going to hopefully remember this material better and better. Okay. There will probably be somewhere between 5 and 8 quizzes over the course of the semester. This only accounts for 5% of your grade. So each one is at most 1% of your grade. So it's not, it's not a big point thing, but it adds up to a lot. And, hopefully that's enough incentive just to get you to think like when there's a quiz that's going to be the next class period, you take the time to read back through your notes. And I will tell you always the class before there's a quiz. Okay, so it won't be just like sprung on you on random Thursdays. I'll tell you. Any questions about that? Oh, and the quizzes, just like all of the exams, I don't think I said this yet, but the exams, the lab exams, and the quizzes are all cumulative every time. Okay, so to study for all of these things, you have to go back to the beginning of the class and make sure you're ready for all of the stuff that we've covered. And going back to the exams for a second, I didn't say this, but I think the best way to study for exams is to just go through the daily problems that I've assigned up to that point, starting at the beginning. And at each one, just ask yourself, do I know the steps of how to do this problem? And if you look at it and think like, okay, I do this, I make a list of this, I solve for this variable, I do this, then you're good on that one. No reason to waste any more time on it and go on to the next one. And that way you can spend most of your time on the ones that you get to and you're like, boy, I don't really remember this, Then you can really work through that one to solidify it. But you just want to get to the point where you understand the steps for every one of those daily problems. And once you get to that point, you'll do well on the exams. Okay. And then the last part of the grade is the daily assignments. Like I said, those are really the heart of this class. You have full solutions for them, but your job in this class more than anything else is just to learn how to do these problems, understand the steps for doing these problems, get to the point where you could explain how to do them to somebody else who's stuck on them. The reason I don't give it a higher percentage of the grade is because your understanding of these daily assignments is what's going to determine your scores on the weekly assignments, and it's what's going to determine your scores on the exams. This is how you learn this class. And these are going to be turned in the same way as the weekly assignments. Take a picture or a scan of your work, submit it to a Dropbox in D2L in the assignment section. And some of these, let's see, which ones? The lecture quizzes and the daily assignments, each one of those, I'll drop the 2 lowest scores out of your grade. So you can miss an assignment, miss a quiz, 2 of them actually, and those zeros won't show up in your grade. But obviously, if you start missing a lot of them, it'll affect your score. Any questions about daily assignments? Okay, and then the last thing about labs is, so there's no grade specifically tied to labs, but you just basically have to come to all the labs. You're gonna want to anyways to learn the material for the lab exams, but if you miss more than 2 labs, you can't pass the class. I mean, I'm sure if somebody had missed two labs and then, came to me and like, oh, my car broke down or whatever, I'm sure we could work something out so you don't fail the class. But the basic idea here is just, I'm taking attendance at these labs and you have to come to labs. Okay. If you don't come to labs, you can't pass the class. And then the last thing is the cheating policy. This usually isn't that much of a problem in in-person exams, but it can be a big problem in asynchronous online classes. If you're caught cheating, it's going to be bad. You're going to get an F in the class. Your name's going to be submitted to this office that deals with it. So don't do it. Avoid AI stuff. Avoid Chegg and Course Hero. But I mean, you definitely will not get, you won't get in trouble for cheating if you don't cheat. I mean, I'm not, yeah. So just don't do it and everything will be fine. So that's about it for the class. Anybody have any questions about the structure of the class? And then if you want to read through it, there's a little bit of like administrative type stuff lower on the syllabus. Course learning outcomes, you can look through those if you want. And then there's some campus resource type stuff down at the bottom of the syllabus. So it says some stuff about AI. One thing that might be useful is Normandale has this really great office called the Office for Students with Disabilities. They help with if you feel like you need extra time for exams, or you have some kind of dyslexia or anything like that. It covers a whole range of issues. Just email them or call them or go talk to them. And they're very helpful, and they'll tell you if there's anything they can do. Every semester I have a handful of students who take exams in the OSD office because they get, some extra amount of time to take the exams or an extra quiet room, that kind of thing. So, and the people there are just so helpful and friendly and stuff. It's just a really nice place. So just know that that's there. Okay. So yesterday, I have two lectures of the same class. So I gave this lecture yesterday and I was planning to go into unit conversions and stuff after I was done talking about the syllabus, but my voice I was like already going hoarse. So I'm like, I just got to stop now, live to lecture another day. So it's hard for us at the start of the year. We're not in shape for it, So anyways, I'm going to stop after the syllabus. And so, at the start of class on Thursday, we'll get into actual material about units and stuff. Yes?
I don't remember if you said this already or not. Are exams stuff open or closed?
Oh, I did not say that. Thank you for asking that. Everything is closed notes, but I give you all the equations you need. So, and somebody also asked me this, and I really had never thought of doing this before, but it makes a lot of sense. Like, I bet I can put together a full list of equations for the semester, so you know, so you can get used to doing your homework with the equations that I provide in the format that you're going to see. And then it's kind of like no surprises when the exam comes about what I have and what I don't have. So I should be able to do that. I'll make an effort to get you something like that. Yes.
Do you have a course schedule, like which days you plan on discussing which topics?
I don't, just because different classes just have ask a very different number of questions and stuff. And sometimes the class goes much slower and sometimes it goes much faster. So I just haven't done that because it wouldn't be very accurate, I don't think, anyways. Any other questions? But if you ever need that, because you know you're going to miss some classes or something, just send me a message and I can pretty accurately tell you at any time what the next 3 classes will cover or something like that, you know. Okay, well, that's it. See you on, so remember, if you didn't have lab today, remember to come to lab on Thursday morning before class, and then I'll see everyone in class on Thursday.